Nice to see you all in. See people from all the coasts. Play a scary vor tune, says Andrew Novak. I can't because I don't have an out of tune bagpipes. Ooh. So I'm sitting in front of the Claddagh in Galway for a change today because it's really sunny outside, and I didn't feel like a dark brick background for a change. Anyway, so hope everybody's doing well. Probably a little shorter show today, or a shorter hour, as they say, because we're launching Banjo Land very soon, and I know Amy Strong is beginning to pull her hair out again with what the heck is Banjo Land, but we're working on a bunch of stuff in the background. So I do have a couple of pretty big interviews done, but I haven't had an opportunity to go and do all the edits because they take an enormous amount of time. So I've been working away on them, and I'll be bringing them to you very shortly. For today, I'm going to do a live interview for a change. So I get to do my Skype dance, which sadly hasn't become much of a meme or a thing. But today is a day for asking questions. So hit me up in the text box, and I'll do what I can to answer them. Charlie Brown says, Banjo Land, what's not to love about... I know, I hope it lives up to all the anticipation. We've been talking about it now for a while. Hey, there's Brittany Natasha. I have a good story about Brittany Natasha. not a bad story, a good story. Where one of our band members left their bag in an Airbnb in Connecticut. And Brittany sells merch for us when we're in... is it not Connecticut? No, Old Saybrook in, God, I can't remember, my poor head. And we left a bag behind us. And Brittany, as we found out, is a private detective, or private investigator. And we got her to track down somebody to go to the Airbnb, pick up the bag, bring it to UPS, ship it overnight, and we picked it up the next day. So she was absolutely awesome. It was a very tense day. Quinn Thomas in Chicago. Do I have any vintage banjos? I don't have anything out at the moment. The only one that I have is an Epiphone Recording A, and it's not in great condition because it hasn't been played for a long time. The tuners are the original tuning heads, and it just won't stay in tune. I was correct about Connecticut. See? There you go. Good times. Well, I mean, it was a very stressful day, but we got the bag back, Brittany, and we were very happy about it. How about an interview with Frank? We could absolutely do that. I did one very early on. I'm remembering the early days when I was really struggling with a lot of the tech, and I rang Frank and I asked him how he got into sound engineering, and I think about 20 minutes later I picked up on what he was talking about. It was an absolutely fascinating discussion, but I'd love to hear him again. I will be going live to Portland, Oregon, or Salem, Oregon shortly. I'm going to play some music first. This, funnily enough, is a banjo that didn't get brought out last week. It's a Clarion Elite. The reason is that I forgot that I had it, and then I did all these demonstration videos for Finton at Clarion Banjos, and I sent them to him, and then he rang me in a panic. He was going, did I not give you an Elite as well? And I was like, I don't think so. I played everything that I have. And he said, oh, well, there's one missing. Will you go and look for it? So I had to run around. Now, I'm going to actually, what I'll do is I'll show you a video of this room. And I found it. There was just too many banjos and too many banjo cases, and I had forgotten where it was. And this is it. And I have it now. Why do I wear dark glasses on stage? Truthfully, or lies? I don't know. Which answer do you want? I'll let you decide. Maybe Quinn Thomas might know what it is. So a couple of things there that I want to get to. Heather Simmons says, so nobody notices when I'm asleep on stage. That is actually partly true. There's Nolan Ladowski that used to play with Scythian at one stage, a fantastic musician, and also played a little banjo. And I played it on stage in Dayton, Ohio once. So the sunglasses, I can't remember why I wore them on stage initially. They kind of serve a dual purpose. One is that they apparently look cool. That's up for discussion. The other thing is that there's a lot going on stage. So I'm standing up, I'm playing, we play very fast, and then there's the whole engagement with the audience thing, which is a huge part of what We Banjo 3 does. And sometimes when I wear sunglasses, it means that I can close my eyes and not look like I don't care. And then I can really get into the music and really enjoy what I'm playing and soak up the atmosphere of a concert and really feel the vibes that are coming off the audience and from my band members, and not, because sometimes eye-to-eye contact freaks me out, and then I forget what I'm supposed to be doing, and then I make mistakes, and then I get very self-conscious, and then I make more mistakes, and then it all goes downhill from there. So that's either truth or lies, who knows. How would you describe what music does for you aside from making you a living? Currently, it's not making me much of a living. Sitting at home in front of a very dodgy green screen. What does music... Do you know what? You know, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've toured about 5-6 months of the year, and it really balances out my energy. And I mean that in the sense of being on stage and performing, and the huge upsurge in energy and synergy that happens when you're playing in front of an audience is exhilarating, and it's invigorating. And that, for me, balances all of the work energy, if you want, the sitting in front of laptops and doing taxes and planning tours and booking hotels and all of that stuff, and then just all of the other stuff that goes along with being human and living in the world. And playing music is a great expression of energy, and sometimes it's a great expression of stuff that you wouldn't even know that you needed to express, and it's a great outpouring of emotion in that sense, and in an outpouring of energy. It's and so it balances a lot for me, and I love it. The Irish only lie when it's absolutely convenient, which is literally all of the time. We're not that bad, actually. There was another question. Cindy asked a while back, what is a clawhammer banjo? So this is a tenor banjo, Irish tenor banjo, played with a flat pick. Picked it. Clawhammer banjo is like what Rhiannon Giddens plays, or Abigail Washburn is married to Bella Fleck, and I don't play it, but it's basically, it sounds a little bit like this. So it's very, very simple, very rhythmical, it's very strong rhythm drive on it, and that then progressed. Earl Scruggs is credited with playing the 3-finger picking method, which I also don't play, and that's which is the really long, the really fast banjo sound that we're now so used to in bluegrass music. So they're essentially the 3 best known forms of banjo playing. There is another which is kind of plectrum. It's known as plectrum banjo or jazz banjo, which is. They generally tend to play to rooms that are full of just other banjo players. It's very interesting music, but it's kind of cheesy, and I hope there's no tenor banjo players listening now that are going, what? That's very insulting. Now, Geese in the Bog. that the geese in the bog? I'm a self-confessed, absolute, complete and utter Luddite when it comes to names of tunes. I'm terrible. Hello, John Hogan. I'll play this and you can tell me if it's the geese in the bog or not. I hope it is. Yes, lots of affirmation that that is indeed the geese in the bog. That's in the key of D. It's also nice in the key of C. So now, and as Kelly rightly points out, clawhammer and 5-string and 3-finger bluegrass banjo are 5-string banjos. They are the ones that have the 5th string partly up the neck, and that's the high resonant note that pings through like a... All right, here. So somebody asked me a week or two ago what my setup is here. So because I can't pick up my laptop and go swinging it around the room because that'll look kind of silly, I made a very, very short and rather terrible iPhone video just to show you all my banjos. So this is my studio, for want of a better word. I have a terrible green screen with loads of lumpy bits, but so far it's doing the job. I bought myself a little rack, banjos. There's stuff everywhere. Here's my TikTok ring light. Need to put that in position and turn it on. Got a nice laptop stand, microphone, headphones, more banjos, more stuff, dumbbells that don't get used, more banjos, banjo cases, and I'm just gonna pull this down. I can even out the light a little bit. So yeah, this is it, look. It's a fairly straightforward setup with terrible green screen, but it does the business. There you go. I don't know what to say about that. Yes, a good question. And actually, there you go. Now it was Laurie who asked me a TikTok light. What? If anyone has been on TikTok, which I think is absolutely hilarious, they all use these circular lights so that they get nice skin tone when they're doing the dancing, which apparently is all that there is on TikTok, or certainly that's all I see. So that probably says more about me than it does about TikTok. But it's just a ring light, but I call it a TikTok ring light because it sounds funny. Let's see. What do you play my tenor banjos? Why do I play them tuned A-D-A-E? Haha, you're confusing my life. That's my job. Alright, so very simple answer to that. A standard banjo is tuned E, A, D, and normally a low G on the bottom. Now this is getting into musical territory. So this, I feel like I'm not enough in. The lowest note is normally tuned to a G. I'll do it down for now. So when you play a tune like the Connacht Man's Rambles in the key of A, which is the tune that I love, you have to stretch all the way up here for C sharp. And I find that when you tune up to A, now the C sharp is just here, and it's very easy to reach it. Now the reason that I did it was a long time ago, when I was 11 years old. 11? 11. I was playing in a show in Galway called Shimsa, and I'm currently editing a very long interview with a beautiful lady called Septa, who was one of my very first music teachers. We talk all about Shimsa and all about the folk theatre that myself and Fergal I grew up playing music, and really one of the reasons that we became professional musicians. As part of that show, I had to learn a tune called Funk the Cajun Blues by Jerry O'Connor, and I couldn't figure out how to do it with the G tuned to G, because it was just too much stretching. It was all this. My hands were too small, and I figured there has to be a way around this. So I tuned the G string up to A, and then suddenly I was like... Now, that I'm going to type in the name of that because I don't want to get in any trouble. There you go. Just in case there's anyone mishears me and I get fired off Facebook or something. That's called Funk the Cajun Blues. It's totally worth checking out. I assume it's on Spotify by a great banjo player called Jerry O'Connor, who's really my main influence growing up as a kid. An incredible musician. Those questions that I missed. Do I ever dream about banjos? I absolutely never ever dream about banjos. I'm still not 100% convinced that I have found the perfect banjo. But it's out there, surely. Right, I'm going to go and play you a piece of music. This is by a band called Kristen Grainger and True North. And then I'm going to chat to Kristen on Skype. And Kristen is a great friend of mine. She's from Portland, Oregon, or Salem, Oregon, the Oregon area. We've become very good friends over the last few years, and her band have opened for Wee Banjo 3 on a number of occasions, and she sang with us every time we're in Oregon. And they've just released a new album called Ghost Tattoo, which is getting rave reviews. So I'm going to play you one of the songs from this, and I'll get Christian up on Skype and we can have a chat. So here we go. This is called Keep the River on Your Right.
Mid-October, the geese are flying over, headed for the coast. But you're not here, and it seems this time of year is when I feel it most. that talk of heaven, well, it never resonated back in Sunday school. But I found my religion on a windy mountain ridge and on a riverbank with you. When melancholy gets into my way, I remember what you used to say. Keep the river on your right. You can't go wrong with the river on your right. And if you've lost your way and you're running out of daylight, keep the river on your right. The autumn leaves, they whisper in the trees against an endless sky. Despite it all, every leaf must fall just like you and I. And if there is a heaven, well, I bet you got your campsite all staked out. And if there is a heaven, I bet you play that country station way too loud. When melancholy gets into my way, I remember what you used to say. Keep the river on your right. You can't go wrong with the river on your right. And if you've lost your way and you're running out of daylight, keep the river on your right. On your right, you can't go wrong with the river on your right. And if you've lost your way, you're running out of daylight, keep the river on your right. Keep the river on your right. Keep the river on your right.
All right. There's Kristen. People really like your voice, Kristen. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for playing my song on your show.
It's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful song. Yeah, people love the sound of that. And I've really enjoyed listening to it. So the album, let's get right into the nonsense. It's called Ghost Tattoo.
Yeah.
Explain yourself, please.
Well, so trying to name an album, you know the drama of trying to name an album, right? We've been through it. Yeah, can't make anybody happy. But really, it's about Ghost Tattoo is like the idea of either a tattoo fading, or it's the idea of, you know, these things in life that mark you forever, either emotionally or even physically, following you around in a haunting sort of way. It lifts from several songs. There's a lot of ghost themes on the record. Some of them are literally supposed to be about ghosts, and some of them are really about just the idea of spirituality and how fleeting life is and all that. So not to get too deep on you, but it was what I could
go deep, Kristen.
It's what I could get the votes for, you know. So
very good. So it's got absolutely stellar reviews. I'm going to read some of them out because it's. I was reading them all day today, and there's some incredible. It's been really, really well received, this album. So, No Depression says Grainger's voice soothes even as she sings of uncomfortable truths, as if to reassure that eventually, we'll find our way toward becoming better people. That sounds like what you were aiming for, doesn't it?
I mean, you like to think that people will come to their own good terms and do the right thing all the time. If a song helps do that, I don't know, that's great. I was actually totally blown away by that suggestion that my music could change the world. I think music does have a lot to offer in terms of making the world a better place, for sure.
Yeah, and No Depression is one of the really big publications. It's wonderful to attract their attention.
We were thrilled, frankly. We were just, yeah, that was really great.
Do you write songs for a reason?
I don't know. I think what Woody Guthrie said, he said the songwriter's job is to make uncomfortable people comfortable and to make comfortable people uncomfortable. And that's sort of how I see being a songwriter. I observe the world around me, and there's plenty of material, right? There's plenty of stories, good stories, not good stories, happy, sad, tragedy, comedy. And I'm an observer of the world, and that's what artists do. Is they see the world and they translate that in art that helps other people connect with it. So that's how I see songwriting.
Have you always been a songwriter?
No. Really, I guess I'm the victim of a happy childhood. I really didn't have much to write about or to say until I became an adult and kind of encountered the heartbreak of adult life and the things that happen to people as they grow up. So I didn't write a single song until my mid-30s, and that was when Dan and I met and fell in love, and I'd been through a lot of things and had experienced life the way you do, and I've always been someone who's paid attention to what's going on in the world. So that's when I decided to put these things together. Dan being such a great musician, a great guitar player, and he also creates this great space where creativity can flourish, and that's also a rare thing for me too. My family is a bunch of scientists and engineers, and they're great, but they aren't exactly they weren't really nurturing of the poet. So oftentimes I just was kind of toiling in obscurity. So that was another great thing, was just getting with Dan.
Was there a lot of pushback from family about songwriting or singing or pursuing the
No,
arts?
I just think they thought it was kind of silly, and that's fine. That's something you can do for fun, but it isn't really a vocation. And my father, who was literally deaf in one ear and selectively deaf in the other ear, told me when I was about 18 that I really shouldn't sing or play music because I didn't actually have any talent. And if I had talent, they'd know by now. So there's no point in me pursuing that any further. And I didn't play much music. I mean, I played music, but I didn't write any music for years because of that. He was somebody who was very successful in his life, and he said I was not talented, so I believed him. But that's okay. I'm over it now.
Good. But I find that very inspiring, because the idea that you need to start something at the age of 10, and then by the time you're 30 you're actually reasonably good at it, and if you're not, then you shouldn't bother to try, because I think that is a narrative, especially in things like the creative arts, like singing or songwriting or playing music, playing certain instruments. And I was blown away when I met Rhiannon Giddens, and she said she never picked up a banjo until she was in her 20s. And I'm pretty sure Abigail Washburn is the same. So
Well, you are kind of conditioned to think that you peak at quite a young age, but to me, you can't write a song until you've had your heart good and broken. You really can't write about the way the world is until you've actually experienced something. And while we all have sympathy and empathy, it doesn't always translate into a great song. And I think the worst songs I've written are love songs when I'm in love. I mean, those are usually the worst, the cheesiest. And I write best about the 4 food groups of misery, right? So, divorce, death, murder, and your car breaks down. That's basically the things I write best about.
Yeah, that's country music in a nutshell right there.
Right. Well, I think there's a dead dog usually in country music. So.
Yeah. So you had a very successful career in the political realm, from which you've recently retired. I believe hopefully permanently, because you do have a habit of unretiring yourself. Tell us a little bit about that and how that informed some of the songs on this album.
Well, when you work in politics, I worked at state politics for about 15 years, including Chief of Staff for Oregon Attorney General Hardy Myers and Communications Director for Governor Ted Kulongoski and Communications Director for Governor Kate Brown. And when you're in those positions, you do get exposed to a lot of intractable problems and people entrenched in positions and difficult situations. And that really does bring to light the to me the humanity that we all share and the commonality of the things that are difficult to solve. And in doing so, I'm also acquainted with protest songs, but I don't think of my songs as protest songs. I don't particularly think of them as political songs, and I don't think of myself as an activist in that way. I think of myself as someone who is an observer of the human condition, and I see these things, and they give me ideas, and I feel compelled to share that and to put it in something that people can take with them and be hopefully transformed by in some way. And that's all you could really hope for as an artist. But to me, they're all stories worth telling. They're things worth pointing out and personalizing them. And when you do personalize something like that, if it's violence against women, if it's global climate change, if it's the kids in cages issue at the U.S.-Mexico border, those things really do resonate with people when you can give it a personal story and a voice.
So there's a lot, I've seen a lot lately online where artists have come out, particularly over the recent protests and over Black Lives Matter, and have made very strong statements. And sometimes, not always, I mean, I think mostly it's hugely supported by fans. But there are some people that push back and say, you know, hey, musician, stay in your lane, just, you know, continue to make music, and, you know, you shouldn't have a voice in relation to the country, in relation to political matters. How do you feel about that? I mean, I think I know the answer.
Well, that's just silly. I mean, it's like saying to an artist or a writer or a musician, a songwriter, don't make me think, just entertain me. And there's plenty of musicians you can find that can offer that, I guess. It's not what I do, but I also think that when I listen to music, I want to think, I want to feel something. I want to be taken on a little journey from point A to point B and be different at the end of that journey. And that's what I seek to do in a song. It's what I seek when I read something, when I listen to something, when I experience a live concert. That is part of what artists contribute to our quality of life. And and there are people who, you know, want to watch the same sitcom over and over and over again, and that's fine. That's out there for them. But that's not what you know, music means to me, or what I want to have my music do.
Mm. So one of the songs, one of my favorite songs on the album is Ghost of Abuelito.
Yes.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because the references in that song, you had to explain them to me, because as an Irish person, I didn't get them. But it's a very, very good song.
Thank you. So the Ghost of Abuelito contains at least two Spanish words. Abuelito, which is the diminutive of grandfather. So we'd say granddad or grandpa in my family, and that's what Abuelito is. And then abuelos, which is grandfathers, the term grandfathers. And basically it's from a challenge thrown out there by Neil Young to all artists back in June, about a year ago, where he said, okay, artists, this is what artists do, is they create art to raise awareness and to focus a bright light on a particular injustice or story. And this grew out of this news accounts coming to light about the children being separated from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border and kept in detention and in really deplorable conditions. Many got sick, some died. They're still there, they're still suffering, but the national attention has focused to different subjects now. But it really was quite, in my view, I was ashamed of how our government treated those people. And so I heeded the call of Neil Young, and I decided to write Ghost of Abuelito. And in doing so, I was able to read the transcripts of the government officials, or I guess the court officials that went in and inspected the detention centers. And you can look at them yourself if you want at Project Amplify, projectamplify.org. It has the transcripts where you can read them, and I read them. And the song is an amalgam of what the children expressed there. It was clear they didn't know what was happening. They didn't even realize, some of them didn't even realize they were in U.S. custody. They thought they were in some weird limbo, some weird purgatory between their their country that they were coming from, and the United States. And the legend that they learned is that America is a place of freedom and it will take you in, because that's what we've been saying for 200 years or more. So that's what inspired the song, and that's what the song's written from the point of view of two siblings who were taken from their parents and put in detention, and how they coped in that situation.
It's an incredible song. There's a wonderful depth and story to it.
Thank you.
You know, you talk about America as the bastion of freedom and welcoming, and it was to so many Irish over the years. Has that changed? Is it changing? Is it temporary? I mean, it just seems to be in such flux at the moment. How do you feel about what's happening right now?
I do believe it's changed. I do think there are people coming to this country who are allowed to come and stay and get green cards and eventually become citizens. That's still happening. I think, though, that the changes down at the U.S.-Mexico border in the southern part of the United States, that's, I think, where things are changing the most, because I think there's been a lot of concern about the number of people coming in illegally, and that's what gave rise to the policy where families are separated, and as a way to deter parents from allowing their kids to come into the country illegally or from bringing them in.
And where do you think it's going to go? Or what would you like to see happen?
Well, I'd like to see a different president. That's just my opinion, but I think those policies come from the top. Congress has kind of demonstrated its inability to fix that situation, and so what we've been doing is having to. I think the people who oppose the kinds of things that are happening are litigating it in court through the American Civil Liberties Union and other lawsuits. So, I know we're getting into politics here, so I don't know how much that you want to.
How to gracefully hit reverse. What were you terrified bringing out an album in the middle of a pandemic where everybody is essentially locked down and touring opportunities are minimal at the moment?
Yes, we intended to bring this out on March 7th. In fact, that was our first CD release concert. We have lined up Seattle, Portland, Eugene, Salem, up and down the West Coast, and all of them got canceled within 2 or 3 days of the pandemic kind of being acknowledged more broadly. So we pushed it off until June, and I think it was the right thing. We thought we'd know more. I don't think we knew a lot, and there's still a lot that's unknown about how live music will happen in the future. Lots of people talking about it, but no definitive plan. So what we decided to do was to take a chance that others would withhold their releases and there'd be space for us to release it. And that's what happened, is that we have been getting great attention and airplay. We do think it's a great album. We're really proud of it, but it has helped that Bob Dylan, Neil Young, and Kristen Grainger and True North are on the same release lists these days. I don't mind that one bit.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome list.
Yeah,
wonderful. When are you coming back to Ireland? Is that a ridiculous question?
Well, it isn't. We'd love to come tomorrow, in fact, but it turns out the European Union's a little irritated with the United States right now and may not allow us to come. Not True North specifically, but with the way the virus has been handled, so we may or may not be able to come. But we're planning to come back in 2021. Everything we do now is hopefully setting up for a robust Ireland visit in 2021.
What is it about Ireland that you love? Or why do Americans love coming touring here? It's such a small country.
Well, I can't speak for all of my fellow Americans. I feel so welcome and at home there, and I hear the amount of music and the amount of people who just love music and want to hear music, want to share music, want to play music together. It's wonderful. And there's a lot of that in the United States, but it seems quite, kind of monetized over here. It's not really as integrated into the culture of every man, woman, and child as it seems to be in Ireland. And And, you know, it's always great to go someplace where they're happy to see you, right? So
That's why we come to America.
that's right. We do have lots of people happy to see you.
Yeah, because American audiences, we find that as soon as the doors open, they're straight up to the front of the stage, and they're really eager to go. With Irish audiences, they really have to kind of encourage them to come out of the shadows at the back and come up toward the stage.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's just an Irish skepticism. It's a sort of a healthy, you know, we're not going to give you too much until you prove that you're worth it. We had a very funny story one time when we played in Limerick, and there's a venue there called Dolan's, and it's really dark in the corners. So when you're on stage and you're looking out, at the time we played it, we couldn't see anybody. And
Oh, wow.
Dave says, "Okay, so who wants to sing along? Who wants to do a bit of singing?" And there's silence, followed by this voice from the back corner that says, "Oh, we paid money to come in here to hear you singing."
Well, that's no fun.
And I was like, "Yes, we're in Limerick now, boys." Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah.
We've played Limerick and had a wonderful. I've had twice now, 2 wonderful shows there. Just at the Granary Library, it's just a wonderful place.
Yeah. Now I will say, when Irish audiences get going, there's nothing to beat them. And we played Galway last year, and it was an incredible experience.
Right.
Yeah.
The Leisureland, was that the show? At Leisureland?
Yeah, Leisureland. Yeah, it was great.
That's
I'm
great.
really going to miss American weather this summer because it's rained here. It's been really cold. I put on the central heating yesterday.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, it was 91 here yesterday in bright sunshine.
23rd of June. All right. Kristen, we're going to play one more song from the album, and I'm going to let you go. It's lovely
Okay.
to see you. Your husband Dan is one of my favorite people on earth. When I grow
He
up,
is.
I want to be Dan.
His dream come true.
Yes, he is.
Thanks.
So we're going to finish out with a song called Jeremiah's Tree. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it before we go?
Well, sure. Just really quick, that's a song about my inability to go with the flow.
Sadly, I know what that's like.
Uh-huh.
Nothing rhymes and nothing clicks. I'm breaking bones with stones and sticks. Wrap my sorrow around these bricks and send them flying. Demons carp and caterwaul. Watch me stumble, watch me fall. Crack my forehead on this wall, but I keep trying to be the seed that water plants on a stony riverbank. From these mighty roots I sang, I'll rise to be Jeremiah's tree. Sun will rise and sun will set. You spin the wheel and place your bets. Say the graveyard silhouettes of concrete angels in the quiet of my bed. Something Jeremiah said helps me wrap my head around these changes and be the seed that water plants on a stony riverbank. From these mighty roots I sang, I'll rise to be Jeremiah's tree. I awaken from a dream of a tree fed by a stream, ever fruitful, ever green, ever certain. Every seed the river plants is just drifting till it lands, following the current and floating on the wind. Every leaf and every branch, every stone and grain of sand. From these mighty roots I stand and rise to be Jeremiah's tree.
wonderful. Kristen Grainger and True North. And my favourite part about them is that they're lovely human beings. And it's always lovely when you meet musicians, then you admire their music, and then when you get to meet them, and it turns out that they're gorgeous people as well. It's just so nice. Thanks for all the lovely comments. I'm going to play some more banjo music because bizarrely I'm really enjoying it. Even though a couple of weeks ago I was like, no way, I'm not playing solo banjo, nobody wants to hear that. But you definitely go and check out Kristen and True North, and that their album Ghost Tattoo is beautiful. So in the background here is the Claddagh in Galway, and you can't see it because my chair is in the way, but there's a red house in the Claddagh, and there's a lady that lives there called June Gray Smith, which is a lovely lady. And I went to see June many years ago. She's like one of these energy workers because I was getting terrible headaches, and I was getting awful headaches when I was playing music. This is a long time ago, like 20 years ago. And I had done a whole load of different things and, gone and got myself checked for brain tumours, all the usual stuff you do. And there was nothing exciting like that happening. And eventually I went and got some energy work done because I was thinking, I got to get rid of these headaches that drive me mad. And we were working away. I came in one week and she said, I saw you playing on the television with, I think I was playing with Frankie Gavin. And she said, you know that you don't breathe when you're playing. And I was like, what? She said, yeah, I was watching you. When you're playing, you stop breathing. So I was playing a gig that evening. I went along and I was playing, and I realized that as I was playing the banjo, I was holding my breath. Like, and I was trying really hard. And I was stunned when I realized that, God, yeah, I absolutely hold my breath. And I was breaking so many strings at the time, like 25 strings a week. There's a point to this conversation. So I went home and I was like, I need to learn how to breathe. So I went and did a yoga class. And I learned how to belly breathe. And then I realized I needed to learn how to breathe and play the banjo at the same time. Because I had developed this muscle memory where as soon as I picked up the banjo, I stopped breathing and I got really tense. And I couldn't play Irish music on the banjo because there was too much emotional involvement with being good. And I said, well, I need to find something to play. So I used to sit in my room in my house, and I used to play old-time banjo rhythms. This is kind of where the interest developed in bluegrass and old-time music, and where We Banjo 3 ultimately came from. So I would just sit in the room and go, and breathe, just in and out. And I would put all my focus on breathing. It'd breathe in and out, slow and slow and slow. And I would sit up there for ages. My wife Gillian would come up and she would close the door because I was largely just playing one or two notes over and over again. Out of that, I developed this real affinity with the rhythms of bluegrass music. And one of the tunes that I learned at the time was one of the first ones that we played as a band, which is Dance Boatman Dance. Literally the first tune that myself, Martin and David played together in my kitchen around my table. Dave was kind of playing the back end, and myself and Martin were riffing away on that tune, and we were just smiling so much. And I remember at that moment thinking, this is just so good. I love this. It was so full of joy, and the band just came out of that moment. So it was funny, that popped into my head when I saw the image of the Claddagh behind me today, that it all comes back to that lady June saying, "Go home and learn how to breathe." But it's a really nice jig. Alright, I'm going to finish up. I'm going to play you a piece of music that is going to come out tomorrow on the Wee Banjo 3 page, but because you've been so kind to stick around for the hour, I'm going to get you a preview. But I'm going to do a request first. Hold on. Wee Banjo 3 are online. That's why Enda wears sunglasses on stage. They secretly inject extra oxygen into his eyes so he can play faster and jump higher. Anyone that knows our band knows that my jumping abilities are appalling. Oh, so funny. All right, Kelly wants to hear my tune called The Black Frog. I wrote this tune a long time ago, 24, 25 years ago. And I wrote it without ever holding a banjo in my hand. I wrote it when I was in college in Dublin. I used to walk in and out to college. It was a half an hour walk, and I wrote this tune in my head. And I was in a band at the time called Black Oak, which we used to jokingly call Black Frog. So when it came to naming the band, or naming the tune, I just called it The Black Frog. It became very, very popular. And my brother Adrian, who is a lecturer in Irish music, was at a session back before the pandemic, and he heard this tune being played, and he asked the guys that were in the session, "Do you know where that tune comes from?" And they had no idea. And so he told me that because he said that's when you know that your music has kind of entered the vernacular. Nobody knows where they heard it from. So that's my one contribution to traditional music, is a tune with a very silly name called The Black Frog. So one last thing before we go. This is on tomorrow. Be on the Wee Banjo 3 page, so go and check it out. I got Wee Banjo 3 and Hunter Tones, who a lot of you will know because they played with us in the US for many, many years and are on our album Haven. and some other friends, a great piano player who grew up across the road from my mum's house in Corrivin, called Conor Broderick. Tim Eady, who you've seen on this hour a number of times, on Melodeon this time, and Dermot Sheedy on Bowron from the band Hermitage Green. And we got a piece of music that was recorded by the wonderful David Munley on an album called By Heck. And we played the last two tunes on that set. So it was a big operation from my end of the world, because I had now 10 tracks to try and mix and hear everything and make everything sound kind of nice, and then edit 10 people into a video. So I'm learning an enormous amount. And thankfully, at the very last minute, Fergal came in and said, because he's far more skilled on audio mixing than I am, and he said, I'm going to give this a little touch up just so you can hear everything a tiny bit better. So this will be on the Wee Banjo 3 page tomorrow. I hope you go and like it and share it, but I'll give you a little preview because you've been here with me for the hour. Thank you so much. Banjo Land is coming, I promise. Fergal is up on Friday. I believe he has a fantastic show coming up on Friday, so make sure you check it out. So I'll leave you with this. This is Cormier's. Thank you.